Hi, thanks for having me today. Um, I just wanted to start off with a book that I read actually over COVID, which is another favorite book of mine. And for those of you who are musicians, I highly, highly recommend it. It is a Jan Swafford biography of Beethoven. And I just wanted to read for you this quote from Beethoven when he turned 23. And this was from a letter he wrote to himself just as he was considering what to do for that year. This is his New Year's resolution. He writes, "Courage, in spite of all weaknesses of the body, my spirit shall rule. You are 23 years old. This year must determine the complete man. Nothing must remain undone." And I love this because this was a year in 1794 when he really embarks on some incredible creative endeavors and summons his own discipline and determination to create some amazing new music that is new in the world and new to himself, despite many obstacles, which were mostly physical in nature. Uh, this quote from Beethoven has been inspiring me for some time now during COVID, because I've always wondered, what does it mean to actually be the complete man, and what does it take to be so? And I thought today that that would be a really interesting theme of what do you become in order to be that complete man or complete woman? And as I was reflecting on this, there were a few things that came up for me that I thought I would share with you today. And the first advice really comes from advice that I got from my parents, and particularly my father. My father, from the time I was a little girl, and I've talked about this in other writing and podcasts, is that he was always this person who would always tell me to be world class. And this started just even when I was in kindergarten, reading a book or writing a book report or creating a presentation or even a math problem set. Every single small thing, he would turn back to me and ask me, is this world class? Now, what does that look like in real life for a kid or for a professional, for a mom? I think it just means to have really high standards for yourself and to care about the details. And if you do, a world of opportunity will open up to you. This advice was critical for me when I was in college. In college, I had a job as part of my financial aid to work in an office. And back then, a lot of office work involved photocopying and filing. And the first day of work I ever had, my dad said, "Hey, remember to make that work world class." And I just rolled my eyes, as I would to my parents, and said, "Dad, this is not that kind of job." And he said, "Be world class anyway." And I remember thinking to myself, what does that mean when in the context of photocopying or filing? I ended up reorganizing all of the office's files so that they made more sense. I put all of the files, I typed up all of the labels. They were all handwritten at the time. I put it in an order in which anyone can look at it and it would make sense. Whenever I photocopied, I cared about whether or not it was crisp. And that attention to detail is exactly what led to incredible opportunities for me in the future. It was that desire to do a little bit better, to care about doing something a little bit faster, or with the care that maybe another person wouldn't have done, that then led to new opportunities to interface with world leaders and with CEOs of massive companies. And because of that, additional opportunities appeared in my path. And so I've always come back to that idea of what does it actually mean to be world class in any moment of time? Someone once said to me that that must mean that there's a lot of pressure. And perhaps in some ways it does, but I think that really caring about doing something with that love and attention is really what makes it a joyful experience to even do anything. And so I apply that in every facet of my life. The second is more professional advice that I received along the way of what does it mean to then become that complete human. And this is be different. When I was in my undergrad, I was an electrical engineering major. And as you can imagine, there weren't many ladies in the electrical engineering department at Yale. And unfortunately, that meant I felt really different all of the time. I felt like I was going to stick out. I felt like there wasn't an opportunity for me to just sort of disappear. And most importantly, I felt like it wasn't a great place to find friends, at least girlfriends. And my mother said to me at that time that maybe class wasn't the place to find great friends. And I remember feeling really disappointed about that, but it gave me the opportunity to really embrace being different in that moment and not being worried about how I was different. The ability to embrace my difference then actually translated incredibly when I reached my profession of being in venture capital. As you can imagine, in the early days of being in venture capital, there weren't that many women in venture capital. In fact, when I was on the East Coast, I asked the partner that I was working for whether or not he knew any other general partners who were women, and he really racked his brain during that time and he couldn't come up with a single name. And I remember that when I first joined my firm and co-founded Floodgate, it was something that was in the back of my mind. And the first time that I decided that being different was not a disadvantage, it wasn't something that was going to make me held back, was the first time I was trying to get myself into this conference that I really wanted to attend. And one of my friends said, why don't you just think about your differences as a competitive weapon? And I had thought about that for a bit. And as I was thinking about this conference that I wanted to attend that I didn't have an invitation to, and most people couldn't get in, especially if they were VCs, I went to the organizer and I said, hey, I would really love to attend your conference. And of course, he came back and he said, we have mostly entrepreneurs at this conference, and we really don't love to invite too many venture capitalists. And I went back to him and I said, I totally understand that you wouldn't want too many venture capitalists at your conference, but I imagine that there are very few people who would say that you have too many women at your conference. And it turned out he didn't have enough women at the conference. And immediately he wrote back and he said, touche, of course you're invited to the next one. And that gave me this opportunity to really ingest the fact that fundamentally being different is actually better than trying to compete on an equal basis. By being different, you start to create your own rules, you create your own turf battles, you create your own advantages. And then by being different and by embracing that, you actually don't have to play by everyone else's rules. When I first started Floodgate in 2008, I was told that I was asked whether or not I was starting my own venture capital firm because I couldn't find a job. Most people assumed that the path would be that I would join a name brand firm if I could do so. And I was introduced to these firms because many people were concerned that I was starting my own endeavor because I couldn't find a job. The truth of the matter was that I wanted to define my own path. And I love the fact that actually I could do so. And so whether it is your own gender or your ethnicity, different kind of orientation, or the fact that maybe you're religious in a secular world, those differences can actually be an important part of who you are, can help you stand out, can help you be memorable. one of my friends said, being different sticks. It's something that people notice. And it is so much easier than trying to be better than other people. And so one of the professional advices that I give to you is to embrace being different. The last piece of advice that I received that I think is important both professionally and personally, where I want to spend a little bit of time, is the advice that I actually now give my kids. And this family mantra is be someone people can count on. I was trying to recently boil down what I would, all the principles, especially in COVID, of what's important to the three kids that I have. And I have a 14-year-old girl, I have an 11-year-old boy who's about to turn 12, and a 9-year-old boy who's currently in 3rd grade. And they're all at different stages. And so trying to apply the same principle to all three of them can be difficult. And some of the lessons around basic things like honesty, some of it is about hard work. Some of it is, striking out on your own path. But when I was trying to figure out how to say the same story to all three kids, this is what I came up with. Just be someone people can count on. What does that look like professionally? When I'm advising either students or people who work with us within Floodgate, the reason that I love this idea of be someone people can count on is that it basically brings to that one core nugget, the thing that I'm looking for most of the time in the people that I either work with, work for. And what does that manifest itself as? First of all, most of the time, I'm just handing off something to other associates or analysts, and I'm asking them to do something that maybe requires a little bit more micromanagement, or it's sort of a high-level story that I'm giving them. And I'm hoping that either the slides come back the way I'm looking for, or a model comes back, or a write-up comes back the way that I had envisioned. What I love is that most of the time when I count on someone, or I find someone that I can count on professionally, it manifests itself as work that I love. And the reason why it becomes something that I love is it's something not only that I can use immediately, it's what I kind of envisioned, but oftentimes it's even better than what I could have possibly come up with. And because of that, from a professional standpoint, as you think about your careers, think about the person you're working for or your team members. And if they can always count on you to deliver something of exceptional quality, then you will become the person that they turn to. You will be the person that they count on. But this lesson actually is even more important when it comes to the personal dimension of your life. My husband, Albert-Ko, and I are both busy professionals. We are working constantly. We have church callings. We have a lot of things that are happening, and we're trying to be good parents and good sons and daughters. And at the same time, we're also trying to support one another. When I think of someone I can count on, I have oftentimes in my youth thought of my dad. But as I have become more of a grown-up, the person I think of is actually my husband. And the reason why is that he's the person who picks up all of the small jobs that are required around the house that enable me to feel supported. And as an example, this manifested itself when the woman who lives across the street from us was talking to my mother recently. And she commented the fact that when she looks into our house, because our window in our front yard is right in front of our sink. She notices that the person who does the dishes the most is the husband. And she said, I hardly ever see the wife. It's usually the husband. And this became kind of a joke because I would then, after I heard this, I would sit in front of that window trying to be visible doing dishes. But what occurred to me was, what an incredible partner I have who doesn't mind doing the dishes, who does his own laundry, who helps with the kids' laundry, does so many other things for me. So it's the mundane, but it's even more importantly, the cheerleading. He is perhaps my best support, the most excited person when I have some achievement that is being recognized. This point is important for all of you who have partners, whether they have a profession outside the home or whether they are your core support at home. Because if you can be a support to that person, if you can be their biggest cheerleader in recognizing their talents and in supporting them in the day-to-day, my belief is that this makes you actually better as a professional. And that might be weird to think that, but it makes you a better manager, because if you think about all of the people around you that you will be in touch with, there are going to be people who have caretaking needs at home, who are trying to figure out how to balance the million things, whether it's caring for kids, caring for partners, caring for parents, even caring for neighbors. The fact that you will have empathy because you are a great partner at home, that your partner can count on you in the mundane, but in the spiritual, as well as just all the things that happen within the home. I think that's perhaps one of the most important secrets for my success and my happiness at home. And then the last point that I just wanted to leave you with is something that kind of steps outside of these ideas of being world-class or being different and embracing that, or finally being someone people can count on. And that is this idea that I discovered when I was a kid. As a child, my mom had me tested repeatedly with an IQ test in the hopes that I would get into the gifted and talented program in elementary school. It was a program that my brother got into very easily. And every year I failed. And every year my mother had to advocate for me and go into the office and say, she is gifted and talented, please take her. And every year they would make the exception. And she would tell me this all the time, even after I'd done better things in life. She would say, remember those times you didn't pass that IQ test? What I've discovered is that there's no test for human potential. There's no exams or metrics or dashboards for diligence, commitment, kindness, generosity. And the truth of the matter is, those are the most important things. If there is a dashboard for life, if there is a dashboard for this idea that Beethoven talks about of becoming a complete man, those are the things I would actually look for. And the problem is there are no metrics for it. And you do need advocates to help you get there. And so in my mind, one of the most interesting pieces of Beethoven's life, coming back to that biography I read, is that he was a very incomplete human being. He was extraordinarily flawed. He was cruel. He wasn't very nice to many people. He made incredible music, but he was not a complete man. And in the dashboard of life, what is the most important thing? I think it is these things that we don't have exams for. It's how hard you work when no one's really noticing, whether or not you provide acts of service, whether or not you care for someone, whether or not you're generous. And these are not classes that we take. These are not lessons that we're always taught, but these are things that I get to witness when I attend church. These are the lessons that I get to witness when I do acts of service. And these are the lessons that I believe are most core to who I am. And so as you embark on your future profession, and I've been asked to give you some career advice, I think that's the most important piece. It is always remember that humanity, that human potential is the thing that you will count on most, and it will make you both thrive personally and professionally if you keep grounded in those truths. And I leave these words with you in the name of Jesus Christ.